I am Sue Webley. Welcome to another episode of Inspire. Good morning, one and all. Welcome to another episode of Inspire. I'm so glad that I see you coming in on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and on Instagram. Hey, y'all, when y'all see me look over there, that's Instagram right there. Hey, thank you for joining us. Do me a favor as you are coming in, do me a favor and share. If you hear jingle jangles, that's my dog playing with her toy. No, she doesn't do that until I'm doing something, right? So if you hear that, it's Brookie. Come say hi, Brookie. Come on. She ran from me. Okay. All right. Usually she wants to come and say hello, but I guess not this morning. So again, welcome. She's really going to town this morning. Oh, there she is. Okay. All right. So yeah. I'm glad we're all family here because y'all know this doesn't happen on my Inspire show, but she wants to make an appearance today, and it's okay. Thank you again for joining us. Before I invite you to follow us and connect with us and subscribe and all of that good stuff, I want to tell you who I am. If you've just joined us for the very first time today, you don't know who I am, what Inspire is about. I am your host. I am Sue A. Webley. I'm an author, producer, award-winning minister, and an entrepreneur, and I believe in the power of words, wisdom, and witness. And so that's exactly what this show is all about. Each Saturday morning at 10 a.m., we host space for honest, soulful, and often transformative conversations with guests from all walks of life. Entrepreneurs, artists, thought leaders, organizers, and everyday people who are living boldly and authentically. And so we explore topics that matter, from mental health and identity to faith, business, justice, creativity, and healing. Whether we're spotlighting community leaders or celebrating personal triumphs, Inspire is rooted in the power of story and the belief that when we speak our truth, we light the way for others. Now, I want to invite you to connect, follow, like, and subscribe. We are on Facebook and on Instagram at Inspire with Sue W. If you've been with me for a while and you are already following me on Cara Solutions LLC, thank you so much. We're building up the Inspire with Sue W platform, and so I invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Inspire with Sue W. You could also head over to our website at www.getinspired.live. There you can watch all of our previous episodes, find out a little bit more about the show, and subscribe to our newsletter. We don't want you to miss anything that's happening with Inspire. We want you to stay connected with us. So I invite you to subscribe. As you were coming in, listen, the people, the folks on Instagram, they are talking to me, okay? If you're here and you are on Facebook, you're on LinkedIn, you are on YouTube, go ahead and shout yourself out because I cannot see you. I can't talk to you unless you say something. So go ahead and shout yourself out so I can welcome you again as you are coming in. Share, and share some more. We are not going to belabor the time, as they say in the church. We're not going to belabor the time. We are going to get into our conversation with the amazing Shimica Gaskins. She is the president and CEO of End Child Poverty California. And let me just get some more about her, because today it's a really important conversation, especially given what's happening in the world. And so Shimica is here to help us lean into history, legacy, and the power of storytelling, right? And as she talks about the work that she does in the public square. And we are talking about the future of our children, right? And the policies that determine whether they thrive or whether they struggle. We have watched cuts to SNAP, right? Food stamps, services roll out under the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill. And as someone recently said, it is one big ugly. My pastor, by the way, said it's one big ugly bill. It is one big ugly bill. We're seeing expanded work requirements that threaten to exclude more parents, and over $1 billion cut from USDA programs that once brought fresh local foods into the schools. In some cities, like New York, right? We're already seeing programs like the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Snack Program disappear. And so even though all of that is going on, there is some good news. There are leaders that are fighting back, leaders who believe poverty is not inevitable and that justice is possible. And so my guest, Shimica, is coming to bring deep experience in law, public policy, and community advocacy. She's here with us to talk about where we are and where we must go. So I invite you to help me welcome Shimica Gaskins. Let me put myself off of it. All right. Good morning, Shimica.
Good morning. Good morning. So happy to be with you and your audience.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. I was sharing with Shimica before we went on that I'm grateful that your calendar, because I know you're busy, right? And I'm grateful that your calendar, and they allowed you to come and hang out with me on this good Saturday morning. So we like to start with a little lightheartedness, with a little joy. What are you sipping on this morning, Shimica?
I have my black coffee, which is what I have every morning, 6:30 sharp.
Okay, listen. So I always have coffee in my cup. People don't always have coffee in my cup. Lately, it's been decaf, because though I love the caffeine, it doesn't love me. So I gotta keep it decaf, right? But I want to share with y'all. Listen, I have a new cup, a new Inspire cup, and so if you want, let me know if this is one of my designs. So let me know if you think I should put it on the website. And of course, my little question: what are you sipping on? That's on the back. And of course, Shimica, I'm going to gift you one of these. So afterwards,
please. I love coffee cups.
Let me please send me your address and just type the hashtag Inspire. Type hashtag Inspire if you want to be in the drawing to win a cup this morning, and I will certainly send it over to you. Thank you for sharing what you're sipping on, Shimica. So your journey is extraordinary, right? So you stood in courtrooms, you shaped federal policy at Department of Justice, and now you lead a statewide movement to end child poverty. And so for me, that's not just your vitae, that's not your resume, right? That is a calling. So what inspired you to bring all of these experiences together in service of children and families?
Yeah, well, thank you for the question. And, having had it to sort of sit and think about a little bit, usually I sort of have a more linear story about sort of going from law school, wanting to be a child advocate, to being in the justice policy space. But I was really thinking about it. And it really goes back to my parents, actually. They were very active in their community, still are. Particularly my dad always was a pretty, robust political activist. And so, there was always a sense of service and giving back in our household, particularly for those, we didn't have a lot, frankly. And so, but we were also always thinking about who was even more marginalized than us, whether it was ourselves or migrant farm workers. And so that really inspired me to, think about, how to support children in particular. And then I think when I got to law school, learning more specifically about the systems of economic and race, structural racism that were really the drivers of the issues that were faced in my community, led me to being really on a more direct path to figuring out how do I help change those systems. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing. And so when I look at your path, right? So you went from federal government, civil litigation, grassroots leadership. All of those things are diverse, but they kind of seem to orbit, right? They kind of seem to go to the same center. So what would you say is the thorough line that has grounded you across all of what you've done?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really always been about people, right? So in terms of thinking about how real people, real issues, and how they're impacted in communities and trying to find those solutions. And, in the Department of Justice, it was really about thinking about how to transform the justice system, as someone who had family members impacted by the justice system, and thinking about the collateral consequences on families and children. My passion there was really about, how do we bring that into the conversation? We were talking a lot about mandatory minimums and reform of parole, but at the same time, we were leaving out the people who also been most impacted, children in particular. And so I had the opportunity to think about how to, change the Bureau of Prison policies, which was really important to me as someone who's been in prisons, as a child, and visiting family members and knowing the deep inequities that exist throughout the entire process for the person incarcerated and people visiting them. And so, but that, in terms of what I do today is really about finding justice in people's for their daily lives, right? We know so much of what people experience, and sometimes we often don't even know we're experiencing an injustice because it's just been the way it is, right? It's like I've always had to live in an apartment building with a terrible landlord, and I don't understand that I actually have the right to push back against these inequities. Yeah. And so I think that has really been the through line, is thinking about what are the solutions to the challenges that families and communities are facing daily, and trying to figure out, how do we bring dignity and equity into making sure that they have better lives.
Yes. Thank you for sharing. Now, I know from when I produced Dr. Nakia's podcast that you were formerly like an executive director of the Children's Defense Fund
yes.
in California? Yes. Which made me light up because we're connected with my church is connected with the
in New York.
Yeah. So we're with the Welcome Home cohort. And so, we get to go to the Haley Farm twice a year as we work through this process, this grant writing process and creating these programs. So can you share with us a little bit about your time? How did you get involved with the Children's Defense Fund?
Well, first and foremost, Marian Wright Edelman is like my hero. I, growing up, thinking about, I always wanted to be a lawyer as a kid. And, there were obviously many legal heroes to think about and to connect with and be inspired by, Thurgood Marshall, so many others. But I was from South Carolina, and there's not a ton of Black lawyers and not a ton of Black women lawyers. And so Ms. Edelman was one of the first people I learned about, who was a woman lawyer who was fighting on behalf of children. And so I was just so inspired by her work. I felt seen by her work, a 50 plus year legacy, and growing up in the 80s, someone talking about what, impact children need to have. I went to Head Start, a program she helped create, and so for me, it was always really, when talking about being inspired, I went to Georgetown Law School, and I had to walk past the DC office every day on my way to law school. And I would walk past there and I'd be like, oh my gosh, Hillary Clinton worked there. I could never work there. I would love to work there. I'd probably never get a job there. And then I actually ended up spending more time with Professor Peter Edelman at Georgetown Law School, which was her husband. So I got to know him, and he really became a mentor over time. And when I left the Department of Justice and moved to California, um, I knew I really wanted to, at that point in my career, really move back into the nonprofit space and think about specifically the impact of policies on children. And serendipity happened that the executive director of the California office was transitioning out, and I was able to take on that role. And so I led the office for almost 5 years. And then I got to spend time with Ms. Edelman and visit Haley Farm, obviously, frequently. And then as she transitioned into her founder role, and they were looking for a new national president, I actually got to lead the whole office for the national office for a bit of time. So I've been able to really give back to an organization that I felt gave so much to me as a kid. Yeah.
Yeah. And they are doing such amazing work. So shout out to the Children's
Yes.
Success Fund. But you were also doing amazing work. I talked earlier about these SNAP cuts, right? School meal cuts. And so there's been a reduced support for
Mm-hmm.
school meals, right? And I mentioned earlier about the expanded work requirements. And so for families, we know that this isn't just a thing, right? It's whether there's enough food on the table,
That's right. Yeah, I
right?
mean, I think, yes, absolutely. I'm so happy that you're talking about this, first and foremost, because there's been, with HR1, I refuse to call it anything other than that, which is the which is the bill that was passed, the reconciliation bill on July 4th, no other, to that it really is, an unconscionable action by our federal government to take away food, healthcare, and so much more, to give billions away in tax cuts to the ultra wealthy, people who have, excessive wealth in this country. And lost in all of that, oftentimes, right, are the real impacts on children and families. We heard a lot about government inefficiencies and needed to balance the budget. But SNAP has been a federal program that has taken care of so many children and families who absolutely need it, has been a federal entitlement, has been bipartisan for decades, right? And so it's never been a question that as a country we value people enough that no one should go hungry. Has it ever, is it a perfect program? No. Has it met everybody's needs? No. But it was a basic tenet in our country that people should have access to food, and over time, really access to healthy food, access to food options, particularly for people who lived in food deserts. So this really is watershed. And I think people, it can be missed. And so I'm really glad that you are continuing to talk about it. We've moved on to the next thing in our media cycles, but this is something that's having day-to-day impact, as you said, across the country. Thankfully, in California, we still have universal school meals. I was just, in a casual conversation last night sharing, I'm so grateful because so much will change for families, particularly families with different immigrant statuses here in California, which we know have 50% of our children live in mixed status households, and so their households will be impacted. That they will know that they can still get a meal at school, because that is so critical. And so, I think part of what we are continuing to do is just raise the alarm on what these real life impacts will be. The changes to SNAP don't go into effect until next year, but what can we start to do as a community to support each other, to look out for each other? And, like you said, really change, we have to start to flip the script and really take care of our own communities at this point and make sure that people don't go hungry.
Yeah, definitely. Because I'm thinking, I'm not going to even name him because
Mhm.
there's been such debate, such division about whether we should, folk celebrating him as a martyr, and other people, well, personally, I just want him to have the afterlife he deserves. But he once said that there's no child in America that's hungry, right? He's not the only one that thought this, right? And so for me, it's really easy to pass legislation that literally takes food out of children's mouths,
Mhm.
when you believe that
Yeah.
no child in America is hungry, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just,
So
we were talking about this earlier. It's just being disconnected from
yeah,
real communities and understanding, in California, it provides 5 million people with food. So, our CalFresh program. And so I think oftentimes, and this is what the work of in child poverty really is about in California, is people get disconnected. They don't talk to people that don't look like them. They don't talk to people outside of their neighborhood, even outside of their church. And so they don't have a full understanding of what other people might be going through. Both my parents worked extremely hard, multiple jobs at times, and still had a hard time making ends meet. And people just don't seem to be able to have that connection when you don't have those direct stories, when you don't have someone in your life that when you've never even had to go in the grocery store and pick out groceries. And so, I think that, that kind of disconnection is what leads to these types of policies, but also the fact that, let's just be real. It's a lack of care for other people and communities and people, and it is a part of structural racism and economic oppression.
yeah, definitely. If you've just joined us, we are speaking with the amazing Shimica Gaskins, who is the president and CEO of End Child Poverty California. That's powered by Grace.
Right, powered by grace. Yeah.
So if you have a question or a comment, please feel free to post it in the chat. Feel free to post it in the chat. And so Nikita says, I'm seeing every day how our children are given scraps at child care centers in the bare minimum, and it's disheartening. So many children don't have access to food at home, and coming to school or child care is a place where they look for those meals for the day. And she says the CEOs of childcare centers would rather save money by going through distribution companies that supply poor quality food. So that is my dear life partner, and she actually works at an academy, so she knows what she's talking about. She sees this happening firsthand, and unfortunately, these these childcare centers are led by or managed rather by people that look like us, right? And so you would think that there would be more of a more incentive to kind of fight what's happening as opposed to just accepting it
Yeah.
as status quo. So, Quita, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Let me see if I see any comments on Instagram. All right, I see y'all. Hey, Sister Fanny. Hey, Mr. Fanny. So good to see you. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on.
And I hope I'm not too bright, but the California sun is coming up. I'm
Listen, come on,
outside.
Glow. Come on, Glow. This was glowing, okay? You can never shine too bright. You can never shine
Oh my
too
gosh.
So, Shimica, we know that poverty doesn't ever show up alone, right? It doesn't show. It's not in a silo. So, of course, it connects with juvenile justice. It connects with schools, as we've been talking about, and it also connects with healthcare. And so, how do you see these intersections playing out? And how does End Child Poverty California work across them?
Across those intersections, yeah. I think I'm so happy that you named that our lives are intersectional. These issues are intersectional. Oftentimes I remember, and it's funny because history, it's like a playbook. In some ways, we're now talking about youth, particularly youth in DC, and how they need to, the crime rate, all these misnomers around policy, around the criminal justice policy reform or policies or crime rate in DC being high when we know it's not, and that it's the youth issue. I'm like, I lived through that. I lived through that in the 90s, right? The super predator. And from that, we learned that it wasn't just like youth acting out. It was youth not having opportunity, youth not having food, youth in poverty. And that the solution wasn't throwing young people in jail and charging them as adults, right? And so we did so much work over the last 2 decades to undo a lot of that harm and that long-term harm. But we always talk about, particularly in child poverty, and even when I was at the Children's Defense Fund, that we know that the root to almost all these inequities is a lack of economic supports and economic opportunity. And when you look at, why is it that certain parts of the country continue to remain economically oppressed? Why can people feel like they can't move out of poverty, or intergenerational poverty continues to exist? It's not by happenstance, it's actually by design, right? And that design leads to other consequences. So when people don't actually have access to things, we talk a lot about, like, why criminalize someone for having to steal food, right? Or criminalize
Right.
someone for being houseless on the street. But yet that is the repercussion for things that are particularly potentially out of people's control. And I think um, continuing to understand that these are not individualistic decisions, the individualism myth, the fact that people need to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps, as like, you haven't given them any boots, you haven't given them any straps, you're actually taking them all away, are the challenges. And so how we try to address that is really by continuing to break down those myths, talk about what the real issues are, what the real reasons behind why we have these inequities, why they affect Black and Latinx and other vulnerable households more than others. Because people often don't know, right? You're living your day-to-day lives, and you don't have the tools and the resources to really understand, why this is the way it is. Together with direct service providers, grassroots organizations, parents, young people, and policymakers, we try to push for those bold solutions, and really think about how do we mobilize the people who've been most impacted, people who've been impacted by poverty, to make sure that it's impossible to ignore. Because that's the other thing. Like, we have people that get into office and they say, I'm going to do this for children, I'm going to do that for families, and then they forget. And so we try to make sure that, nope, we're going to make sure that this is impossible for you to ignore, that this is what's happening behind the scenes in, beautiful Los Angeles. We have, this many children still living in poverty when it's not just the glam and glitz. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And what's coming up for me is that it's not only those who are going hungry that's criminalized. It's not only the housing challenge that are criminalized. They're
Mm-hmm.
also criminalizing people that are trying to assist them.
That's right.
So, so I think it was yesterday or the day before, they arrested someone for feeding the homeless.
Mm.
So we can't. How do we? And so, what are your thoughts about that, Shimika? How do we? We can listen. This is not our first time at the rodeo. We know
Mm-mm.
how to come together and take care of our
Mm-hmm.
community. Um, but how do we do that without having this fear hanging over our head that we're going to get, we're going to get thrown
Yeah.
in jail because we're just trying to feed
Yeah.
someone who needs it? What are your thoughts about
Um, I think we're at a point where we have to have courage and conviction. I have to talk to policymakers about
that?
the fact that they know what the solution is. They know what the right thing is. I mean, there's a few who will act like they don't know, but most of them know. It's about having the courage and conviction to make the right choices. We often talk about our budget being a moral document. There's a moral imperative to help each other out, to take care of our brothers and sisters, regardless of their immigration status or their LGBTQ plus status, all of those things. And I think and in this moment, in this time, we are all each individually called in our own way, to have courage and conviction. And, it's terrible that may lead to us being imprisoned for something that doesn't actually shouldn't be criminalized at all. But I do think we have a continued obligation
Right.
to speak out, to speak up, and to push back, because if we don't, it will continue. And that we're not in a place where it's like, oh, this is the watershed break moment and things will shift and change back. It's actually going to be up to us to fight every single day. Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you so much for sharing that. We're going to take a quick break for you to take a sip of your black coffee.
Thanks.
And we'll be right back, everyone, with more conversation with the amazing Shimica Gaskins. So thank you all for hanging out with us today. I want to invite you again to connect, follow, like, and subscribe. Connect, follow, like, and do us a great big favor and follow us on those platforms. We are trying to build up platforms on those on build up our things on those platforms. So also, you can head over to www.getinspired.live. There you can find out all about the show. You can watch all of our previous episodes and subscribe to our newsletter. Subscribe to our newsletter so that you don't miss anything that's happening with Inspire. Are you or someone you know on a mission to create change while inspiring others to do the same? Well, we want to hear from you. We want to have you join us in conversation on a future episode of Inspire. You can again head over to our website at www.getinspired.live. You can actually book your appearance on our website. You can book your appearance on our website. Fill out that intake form, and a member of our team will get back to you. Now, we do this. We do this every single Saturday that we are on. Every Saturday that we are on, our sibling and community needs a kidney. She needs a kidney. As a matter of fact, she's in the hospital right now with some complications from them moving the stunt or the thing that they connect to for her medication, for her to help her as she continues to fight this. And so Yanni is a search of potential donors who are fairly healthy, who have the blood types A or O, and the courage to commit to surgery and help save her life. She would love to share the safety measures with you. If you know of an organization or a resource that she can connect to, please send that our way so that we can be sure to have her connected to that agency, that resource, maybe a community organization, even a support group. If you know of anything like that, please let us know so that we can do all that we can to support her. If you want to reach Yanni and her family directly, please email them at peacepeopleinc@gmail.com. That's peacepeopleinc@gmail.com. Or you can head over to EmeryLivingDonor.org to fill out the survey and enter her name, Ayana Davis. Let's do this together in community. We are going to get back to our conversation with the amazing Shimica Gaskins. Hey, Shimica. So I am. Can you hear me? Okay, I just want to make sure you can hear me because
Yes. Yeah,
unfortunately
yes.
I'm not hearing you. And so
Oh
let me
no.
just fix some things over here. I'm not sure what's going on today, but we are gonna. It's not playing. Oh, right. I think that's it. Okay. Yes, the sound is back.
Great.
So thank you again, Shamika, for hanging out. And I just saw about the construction very faintly, very faintly. I am also listen. The things are happening today because now my laptop is dying. So and usually I'm connected. I'm connected to my thing so that it's not. It shouldn't be dying, but it's dying today. So hopefully I can get this plugged in time so that we don't miss any more basic conversation. Glad we all it. You know, things happen when you're live. It's not a and but we're gonna move on. We are going to move on. If you're watching and you're joining us, please, if you have any questions or comments for Shimica, please go ahead and put them in chat so that we can be sure to get them to her. All right, stay today. Okay, thank you again, Shimica. Y'all comments and questions inside of the chat so that so we can have Shimica answer them, respond to them before we end our time together today. So Shimica, we like to talk about joy here on Inspire. Your work is heavy, right? Your work is heavy. And I know that having joy, tapping into joy, seeking out joy has got to be the fuel. So when you are not in boardrooms or testifying about policy, what brings you joy in your everyday life?
Well, I'm glad that you guys you spend time talking about this, because I think the question, even having the question, is sort of a call in, a reminder to be tapping into joy, because everything, not just my work, I think every day everybody's feeling the weight of so much, right? But for me, I think it's been two things. One is we were just saying, like, we get so busy, and I have two kids, and the weekends are full, the week is full, and one of the things I realized, and people probably other people may experience this too, is that you want to see friends, you want to see family, and you're like texting about 2 months from now or like 3 weeks from now, or like having to look deep into the calendar to make it happen. And so one of the things I've been doing is just trying to have more impromptu get-togethers with people I know and love and care about. And it's like, just come over on Saturday. The house doesn't have to be clean, right? And it doesn't have to be planned. And so that brings me so much joy, just to be in community and to spend time with people I care about, and and not waiting for the right afternoon on the calendar to make it happen. And then music, music is really, I always have loved music, but you get busy, you don't put music on, and then you do, and you're like, oh, it just totally shifted my mood, versus listening to the horrible NPR story that just recently was in my head. So I think I've been really returning back to music, and there's so much music that really feeds the soul, whether it's gospel music or music that talks about resistance. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing those practices with us. So if you could put forth one truth, right? Put one truth in the heart of every child in California, in the country, right?
Yeah.
One lesson about their worth and potential that they should never forget, what would it be?
I think it's really simple. And I recognize that I actually don't say this enough to probably my own children, but it's just that for them to know sort of deep in their heart that their worth is they are worthy just as they are, right? That their potential is limitless no matter where they begin. And that they can shape a future bigger than anything they've been told is possible, right? And so, like, to really just deeply know that they have it within themselves, and they are worthy just as they are. They don't have to have good grades, they don't have to have the right, family or house or whatever it is, putting those limits on them and their dreams, that it's possible. And really, that our job as the adults in the world is to sort of clear the path so that they can step into that future that they absolutely deserve and can achieve.
Yeah. Thank you. And so for those of you watching, we know Inspire is not just about conversation, right? It's about some action, right? So Shimica, for those watching us now, those who will catch this in the replay, who will listen later, who want to help end child poverty, what's one practical step that they can take right now to make a difference?
One thing I really want people to do, and that is to keep, as they thankfully Sue today is talking about is to continue to talk about the cuts to SNAP. Obviously, there's so many, the Medicaid, everything else is really important, but right now, the Senate and House policymakers are going to introduce the Restoring Food Security for American Families and Farmers Act of 2025. It's by Senator Lujan and Klobuchar, and we need every House, Senate legislator to get onto this bill and to talk about, because it will repeal the damaging cuts to SNAP. And so I know it sounds like a lot, but picking up the phone and just, I promise you, just call your senator, your congresswoman or a congressperson and say, I'm unhappy about this. Just leave a message.
Yeah.
You don't have to do a formal letter. You don't have to send a long email. Just flood their phones about how important this program is and why we need to repeal the harmful cuts.
Yeah. And so that's so good that you brought that up, because many of us don't think that there is anything we can do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody is called to march,
Mm-hmm.
called to protest, right?
Mm-hmm.
But certainly you can pick up the phone. And some people, don't like to talk on the phone. You can write a letter. Like there is something that you can do. And I often say, maybe it's just feeding someone who's out there protesting, right?
That's right.
Whatever it is, whatever you have in your hands, you can use what's in your hands, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
there is a way that all of us can get involved, and again, come together as a community. We know
That's
how to
right.
do it. We've done it before, and don't let what's happening. I know they are. It feels like they're kind of everything is trying to be rolled back, right? They're trying to take us back to a time, and some people are afraid of that, right?
Yeah.
But one thing I love about us is that that we're strong, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That we are resilient, and people sometimes resilience can be like, I don't want to be resilient.
Yeah.
I
No, I want the struggle to end. Yes.
Right. I want the struggle to end.
Yeah.
But because we know struggle,
Mm-hmm.
right? We know how to maneuver.
Yeah.
We know how to navigate struggle. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think about this issue, and I think about one. I believe we strongly have to combine the direct action around policies with direct action of like the other work in our lives. And when you think about COVID, and we knew people, couldn't get out of their homes, couldn't leave. People rolled up, they went grocery shopping for their neighbors, right? Like they went and got food and brought it back, or they figured out how to support the food banks and others. And so we are in that same moment, right? I think people, like you said, they may not want to go protest, and they may not want to, engage in direct actions, but there's other things that you can be doing to really support your brothers and sisters out here who need you. And whether that's somebody who's been, threatened with mass deportation from ICE and can't leave their apartment, and that, drop off some groceries at their door, right? Or like ask what they might need, because that really is bringing back the connection, continue to support each other, to continue to really lead with love. And that's where that was coming from, right? It wasn't coming because somebody said, oh, it's a COVID policy. It was coming from the fact that people knew people were in need, and they have love and empathy and wanted to show up. And so I think just continuing to figure out and be innovative in how you show up for the people in your community is an important, critical piece that we can't miss.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And so finally, as we get ready to wrap up our time together today, when you think about the long arc of your work, right?
Yeah.
What legacy do you hope to leave? Not just in terms of policy wins, right?
Yeah.
But in the everyday lives of children and families that are touched by your leadership.
Well, I'm a firm believer that we all don't need to stay in these roles forever, right? So legacy is important. As Ella Baker said, I want to make sure, I get out of the way and that I've done my work to build up other people to step into leadership.
Mhm.
Um, that's really important to me in my organization and the people I get to know, really passing on what I've been fortunate enough to experience and learn. Um, and so it starts with the beginning of your question that it really is about, you know, not the policies or programs created, but whether children and families can build a life of health and wealth, however they choose to define that, right? That might mean, real financial stability. It could be for others the ability to care for their children and support their other loved ones, support their larger family unit, so that we have generational wealth to pass on and health to pass on, and reinvest in their whole communities. And so my hope is that I leave a legacy where families are not just gaining resources, but they're gaining dignity and the
Yeah.
freedom to shape their own future. And I hope that my work and even the writing that I do with poetry is just a reminder to us all that justice is possible and that abundance can be shared, and that the lives of our children are worth fighting for each and every day.
Yes, yes, yes. My prayer is that your position will become obsolete.
Yes, that's
That
right.
that
That's
that
right.
the organization is no longer needed, right? And all of the
Exactly.
organizations um, that are that exist because the need
Mhm.
exists,
Yes.
right? Uh, Let us pray that eventually we won't need those.
Mhm.
Everyone will have all of their needs met. Every child, every family will have, food. Don't
Mhm.
have to worry about food. Will have food on the table, right?
Yeah.
Every person will have a place, have a roof over their heads. Every person will have adequate health care, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so that is the prayer for you, your organization, and all of the other uh, nonprofits that have risen up to
Yeah.
address the needs of the people, is that they become obsolete. We know will no longer need them. Yeah.
Yeah. Amen.
Thank thank you, Shimika, for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
It has been a joy. It has been a joy, even with all the tech stuff and still trying
My
to ask.
son.
And so, well, listen, that glow. Listen, we like it, so we like that glow. But thank you
Oh,
for showing us, Shamika, that child poverty, it's not permanent. That is the hope. That is
that's
the dream,
right.
right? But that
That's right.
ending it, as you said before, it requires courage, right?
Mhm.
It also
Mhm.
requires clarity and a collective will,
That's right. Yeah.
and a collective will. Family, I want you to take this to heart. We understand that poverty is really policy made, and that means it could be policy ended,
Mhm.
right? So do what is in your hands to do, whatever you can. Let us come together as community, as the village, right, to stay in the fight to take care of our children. Once again, thank you again, Shamika, for joining us. Uh,
Thank you.
all of you who are watching on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and on YouTube, thank you. Until next time, I want you to stay lifted. I want you to stay motivated, but most of all, I want you to stay inspired. I'll see you again next week.